Welcome inside another edition of Celtics Roundtable, everybody, on CLNS Media. CLNS Media, leading online provider of audio-video coverage of the Boston Celtics. Welcome inside, everybody, coming at you on a Thursday morning. Myself, Matt Ignal, joined by a very special guest. You see him all over the internet if you're a basketball junkie. It's Coach Nick of BBALLBREAKDOWN and the BBALLBREAKDOWN podcast, the website, the videos, everything. It's an honor to have him here in the studio with us, talking about the Celtics and, of course, their acquisition of the only Kyrie Irving and what they were able to do bringing this guy aboard. But Nick, you know, you're a basketball fan. You're a connoisseur of sorts. You are obviously somewhat involved in looking at the analytics of a kind of move like this. Before we get into certain specifics, do you think the Celtics gave up too much for Kyrie, or is this justified?
I think they gave up too much, especially if you want to look at the other deals that happened this summer. I don't know if they needed to give up all that they did. Yeah,
I agree with that. I look at, so the Isaiah Thomas thing, if the health thing is an issue, that's one thing. But the Brooklyn pick in there really was just kind of a shocker for me, to be frankly honest. And you look at what Boston now acquires with Kyrie Irving, and this has been debated, I think, ad nauseum at this point. Is Kyrie, for you, a big enough upgrade over Isaiah? Because I think a lot of people, including myself, I don't see that as a huge upgrade. How are these guys different? I know Kyrie's a little better with the ball in his hands, but it seems like Boston got a very similar player.
Yeah, well, it just so happens I've been spending all day doing a video that's going to show you how Kyrie will fit into the Celtics offense. And I use a lot of what Isaiah does and how he attacks to show, the equivalent of a set or an action that they use in Cleveland for Kyrie. I think that the size has a lot to do with it. Even though Isaiah averaged more assists per game or seemed to get more assists, I feel like there's a better vision by Kyrie because he's taller. And that helps him in that sense, where the assists that Isaiah gets are very ho-hum, like just a quick little one pass away. Generally they're not always they're not like exciting, crazy, great passes. Whereas Kyrie, when he wants to, and when he seems to be stricken by the passing bug, can see these passes and throw good skip passes and thread the needle. So. I think that was one thing that stood out at me. And then the most ironic thing of all was, if you watch enough Kyrie finishes at the rim, you probably would say that he's better lefty than Isaiah is.
Okay. Wow.
That's the kind of talent he is, though.
I can't even see the difference. He's that good. He makes these lefty floaters from about 8 feet out. Kyrie does. That they're astounding to me. I know his percentage at the rim isn't completely elite, but geez, when he shoots those, it's like he's naturally a lefty.
Nick, it's completely obvious to Celtics fans and pretty much everybody else right now that Danny Ainge loves Kyrie Irving, that he thinks he's a great player, maybe better than the consensus opinion about Kyrie Irving, or at least that Danny Ainge thinks that there's quite a lot of room to grow for Kyrie Irving. What's your overall assessment of his current talent level, and what do you think that he could possibly grow into to potentially justify this? Could he even be a top 10 player at some point soon? Could he even be an MVP candidate with the right coaching, the right system, and growing his game, I guess, in the right areas?
Well, we've seen him come up as clutch could possibly be. Arguably the clutchest shot of all time in the NBA in that Game 7. And in that series, he did consistently make really good defensive plays in another clutch way. So he's got a lot of the makeup to do that. He doesn't seem to be flustered or bothered by things. I'm always very impressed by how he doesn't let things bother him much on the court. You almost never see him, complaining and being histrionic, which is really impressive from a guy that young, although he's not even that young at this point. I think we've seen him max out his scoring. I don't think he's going to score more than about 25 a game, which is about the top in the league anyway. I think the room for growth for him is going to be assists, and I think that just by the nature of him getting the ball more and having more control by just being away from LeBron, there's no way he'll average, in my mind, less than 7.5 assists per game, 8 assists per game, and that's going to be a nice jump for him if he gets to be 25-8, 25-9. That's our serious. Those are some serious numbers on a good team. So yeah, I think that MVP candidate is interesting. There's always going to be difficulty when you got the guys like Kevin Durant, Curry, and LeBron out there anyway. But he certainly could be in the conversation and being like, I bet you he can is good enough where he's like eventually a top 5, consideration for MVP.
So wait a minute. Do you think Kyrie? So do you think Kyrie's low? Because everybody makes a big deal out of Kyrie's assist numbers, right? Everybody wants to talk about how Isaiah's a better passer because his assist numbers are better. Do you think it's maybe a product of Kyrie playing with LeBron? And at the end of games, like LeBron is really the de facto point guard and Kyrie plays more off the ball. Are you thinking maybe his numbers could be inflated with the ball in his hands more? Is that what you're getting at?
I think that Kyrie's role on that team is a shooting guard. He was a very traditional Klay Thompson kind of guy who would also get some extra pick and rolls on top. But in my mind, the way you watch that offense run and the way LeBron can dominate it so much, that any other normal situation that Kyrie would have been in, he gets to that that basic starter level assist per game, which is 7.5, 8 assists minimum. So yeah, I think that's going to go up just by nature of him getting away from LeBron, and then playing on a team that doesn't have a guy like that. So he will be able to do a lot more of that role than he certainly had in the past.
You hinted that you were working on how Kyrie might fit into the Boston Celtics system. I wonder if you could give us a little bit of a teaser here. Do you think that the transition from a LeBron-centric offense and the offense that they had in Cleveland will be smooth to that of the Celtics?
No. I have a feeling that he's going to go into ISO mode a little bit at times in the beginning of the year, and I have a feeling that Brad Stevens is going to have to, in his gentle, calm way, explain to him how much better he can be, and I think that he'll get there. What was interesting to me was that when he put the list of teams that he wanted to get traded to, the Spurs were there, the Heat were there, even Tom Thibodeau's team in Minnesota. Those are strong coaches that don't let their point guards get away with, just ISOing all the time, even though a guy like Thibodeau, who is a traditional, hard-nosed coach, his point guards tend to play pretty well. Certainly in Chicago, they would come out of nowhere and play really well, so and get a lot of good numbers. So the bottom line is what said that to me was that Kyrie probably yearns for a little bit more of a structure, a little bit more of a coach's influence. Obviously when you play on a team with LeBron, it's not always clear who the coach is. And that easily, in my mind, as a point guard, looking at a point guard perspective, that could be one of the issues is why he wanted to leave.
I look at this and I just feel like with Stevens' system, the impact that Horford has on the offense, we all know like Stevens likes to play through the bigs, and Horford's really a perfect fit there. I mean, I do think that you're going to see Kyrie Irving used a lot like Isaiah. And he's going to have to make the same reads that Isaiah is going to have to. And I think he's got the talent to do that. And I think while there might be a little bit of an adjustment period, I don't know if I am truly expecting like true rockiness throughout this first year. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it'll be long. I mean, it might be the first month or so. Like, remember when Kevin Durant came in and got into trouble with Draymond when he tried to isolate against Cleveland at the end of that one game they lost? Like, you might see a little bit of that, right? And then, eventually they kind of realize it. But there's no question in my mind, Kyrie is so talented. He is so good with the ball, and he actually does move without the ball okay when he did. He didn't. The offense in Cleveland didn't do it. It was frustratingly so. But, man, coming off of those dribble handoffs into ball screens, oh, my goodness gracious, he should just destroy teams. Both getting to the basket and scoring his own, but then also setting up those guys. My only concern right now is do they really have shooters? Now, I think that they have, and I was talking about this with Nick Gelso earlier today, but they might have guys that could space the floor. Like, Morris will have his man be a step toward him a little bit, and maybe Horford as well. But I don't know if they're going to hit the shots enough to make that those shots viable enough. That's my main concern.
So you talk about spacing, and the thing with that is, it's not like the spacing was a whole lot different last year, right? They get rid of Jay Crowder and Isaiah Thomas. Like Isaiah found a way
Bradley.
to, and Bradley, they found a way to flourish with those guys and get good open shots. Like, yeah, you have your points, Val. Like at the end of the day, Boston, what really killed them in the playoffs is their inability to hit shots. I mean, you go back, look at that Cleveland series. They had open looks. They just missed them. There's a reason why Marcus Smart shot like 10 threes in that game and went 7 and 10. They were open looks, A, and B, they're going to let him have that shot anyway. So Boston's ability to space the floor around Kyrie is going to be interesting. His ability to get to the rim at a rate like Isaiah Thomas will be interesting. But I see, like, at its peak, Kyrie having not like as an efficient season, because Isaiah had a top 10 most efficient season like of all time offensively for that kind of scoring load. But I don't see too much of a drop off, and I think the spacing is only going to help that. Like, I think Kyrie's a better shooter than Isaiah. I think he's a better ball handler. He's a better finisher at the rim. So I just don't see how Boston's offense doesn't make a big leap forward.
Right. I mean, I agree, although it's hard to really parse, like, is Isaiah or Kyrie that much better as a shooter? I mean, because Isaiah was a really good shooter, and he's proven on the mid-range three-pointer, wherever you want, and at finishing the basket, he's really good at that. So, it's hard to kind of say that he's, leaps and bounds, but there are some of the intangibles of the height thing. I don't want to belabor it too much because I love what Isaiah's been able to do, but there is some vision stuff that happens when you have an extra. I mean, I don't know, Kyrie is probably, 5 inches taller than him, maybe 5.5, something like that. So that's going to be big on the offensive end, and it's just a matter of time before Stevens can educate him enough, and I think he's probably willing, which is what was indicated by where he wanted to go in the first place, to accept it, and it's going to be fascinating. I just worry that it could be a wash to some degree, even though they might get better defensively with the point guard position. 4 new starters, it's going to be a whole new ball game. It's not the Eastern Conference Finals team that was last year.
Yeah, you talk about how Kyrie can have a little bit of an experience, a learning experience under Brad Stevens. Well, you too can have your own learning experience, because today's show is brought to you by Audible.com, which is the leading provider of premium digital spoken audio information and entertainment on the internet today. Audible content includes an unmatched selection of audiobooks, original audio shows, news, comedy, and more from the leading audiobook publishers, broadcasters, entertainers, and business information providers. It's real easy to get a hold of Audible.com. All you got to do, simply download their free app on your iOS device, Android, and more, but you got to sign up for some stuff. But we're giving you an awesome package, because Audible is different, right, folks? But in order to get this experience, you got to go to Audible.com. You get a free audiobook. You get a 30-day trial membership just by going to Audible.com/CelticsBeat. And while you do that, you get an awesome experience, because they're a collection of exclusive originals, short stories, and comedy tapes as well. They have the best of news, podcasts, and more. They're handpicked and continually refreshed, so you never get anything stale. Again, that's Audible.com/CelticsBeat, again, for a free audiobook with a 30-day trial membership. We're with Coach Nick, Evan Valenti alongside Matt Ignal, talking about the Kyrie trade for Boston. And the one big thing, another thing everybody brings up is defense. Kyrie defensively is not much better than Isaiah Thomas's defensively. Isaiah at least tries on the floor. Like, I don't care what people say about Isaiah Thomas's deficiencies. I know he's a bad defender, but it's not for lack of effort. Isaiah Thomas tries. Is there any hope that the culture that Boston plays good defensively as a unit, Nick, is there any hope that Kyrie can maybe improve in that area? You've sort of touched on it already.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I did like Isaiah's effort, and there was certainly there. But, at some point when you go to try and contest a shot and your arms are only so long and your height is only so much, it's not as effective. And that's what, again, Kyrie has another advantage. But I will fully acknowledge that there are plenty of examples of Kyrie not giving out at all on defense, embarrassingly so. However, I could do a nice little edit of, especially in those playoffs when they won the title, of him just getting timely steals, and stopping guys when he needed to and contesting really well. So it's there. He just needs to be able to find it. And if anyone's going to get him to give that enough, it would be Brad Stevens, even though it was still kind of head-scratching to me last year why they were having so much trouble sort of finding that 5-man lineups that could stop people consistently. I have to imagine that's more of an anomaly, and that Stevens will have a chance to figure it out and appeal to his sense of playing harder, I suppose, a little bit more. Remember, on defense, it's not like you coach them to stop them and hold them to 0 points, right? This is the game where the other team does score. So the genius of guys like Phil Jackson and Brad Stevens is that they could say, we don't need you to be killing yourself every possession to stop every drive, whatever. Give us these 15 possessions where we've scouted the play, we know what they're running. Take this one pass away, and then we'll go from there. And that's all they need to do to get him to get more focused. I just have a feeling that they didn't spend a lot of time on that in Cleveland, to speak for a lot of reasons.
What's the biggest problem with the Celtics right now in your eyes? Like, what is your biggest concern as a guy that really understands how basketball works?
Okay, that's a great question. My biggest concern is shooting. I feel like, because I guess, what you have is Kyrie and you have Gordon Hayward as like legit shooters. I mean, Hayward's a legit shooter. I guess you got to throw Horford in there in that mix to some degree, but it's such low volume. So then it's like that's the issue. Is there enough shooting in an offense that's designed to get open shots? That would be my biggest concern. And then certainly the bench is another one of those things where there's a lot of things riding on it as far as development goes that they have to get. And then also just the fact that you're going from an Eastern Conference Finals team to basically changing the entire roster. And that's so you're starting over from scratch. And that's going to take a while, too. That's another concern. But I think the biggest one has to be is the shooting, is who's going to be able to knock down shots consistently besides Kyrie.
One more. I got one more. So, Danny Ainge is clearly placing big bets on the development of guys like Kyrie Irving, on Jason Tatum, on Jaylen Brown. Most of the media has panned it. Not everybody shares Danny Ainge's tastes. I just wonder if you could comment on if you think that Danny Ainge is making the bets on the right guys.
I'm not going to second guess. If he wants to say that Jaylen Brown is going to be a great player, I'm not going to think that's crazy. Certainly what we saw from Tatum so far is very promising. It seems like it'd be a very astute pick, so that was good, although we haven't seen anything yet in the real world. Rozier, again, also is something there. So, yeah, I would give him a good grade as far as what he's been doing. I mean, I think at some point we were all wondering, was he ever going to make a move at all? And then the weird thing then becomes he finally makes the move and he probably overpaid. Like he didn't need to give Crowder in that deal, or he didn't need to give the pick. I think let's see. I have a feeling the pick was probably the big one that they really wanted in that deal, that the Cavs wanted. But I almost feel like, and then the other guys they threw in there too, like Zizic is supposed to be pretty good, right?
He was out of shape in the summer league, but he got better as he got going. He was out of shape. I got some
eyeballs on him. I haven't seen him, but so it seems like they started throwing stuff in there for the sake of throwing it in there, which is really too bad. But you reminded me though that they still have that Lakers pick, and in theory that will be a lottery pick. And that's the other interesting question: is do they want to have like 2 lottery picks in the same year for in a top-heavy draft? Like that might have also been part of their reasoning to put that one in there. So either way, though, I think I'm still backing what Danny's doing. I see the plan; it seems to make sense to me.
Yeah, I just the fact that Kyrie Irving is 25 makes me feel a little bit better about it. And again, since you're the guy, the hip thing's always going to be the big question mark with Isaiah, and we all hope that he comes back healthy, but that's going to be a huge question mark for the rest of his career.
And there's no way they ever would have wanted to pay him max salary after this year, and that they were able to get rid of that and then add an extra year from Kyrie's contract. So that's another really big thing that people are ignoring a little bit, but that financially really, really helps the Celtics.
Yeah, I love it. And it helps them out with a couple of guys coming up, Marcus Smart being one of them. That's going to do it for us here on Celtics Roundtable on CLNS Media. For myself, Evan Valenti, my man in crime, Matt Ignal, and for Coach Nick, first time on the show. Thanks for joining us, Coach Nick. Hit the like button and subscribe to CLNS Media if you're watching us on YouTube. Hey, what's up? If you like listening to us on the go, subscribe to the Boston Celtics newsfeed. It's available on your favorite podcast app, whether it's iTunes, Stitcher, whatever. You can download the CLNS Radio mobile app. You can hear Coach Nick's B-Ball Breakdown as a part of that mobile app. You can also get Bob Ryan's podcast, Grant's podcast, Celtics Beat, all that fun stuff, and more. If you have some time, it'd be really great. Give the Boston Celtics newsfeed a 5-star review on iTunes. You get crazy with the comments. Make it weird. I don't care. It's fine. That 5-star rating is awesome. Follow us on Twitter at CLNS Roundtable. And we're now on Celtics Vlog. So if you miss us at some point during the day, just go to Celtics Vlog. We'll be there. Again, my man, Coach Nick of BBALLBREAKDOWN, who does more interactive work than anybody in the planet for basketball stuff. Follow him. Follow all of his videos and his podcasts as well. We'll be back soon. I'm sure there's more to talk about with Kyrie Irving coming up soon, and plus how the Celtics react to that, how they add the rest of the players to their bench because they have some open spots. Then we'll talk about that as well. Thank you guys. We'll see you next time.